All right. Welcome back into the show. And I am super excited to introduce my guy, Giovanni Moceri. He is back with us today. The Joe Mo Show himself. He is in the building, and I'm super, super excited for this. We're doing our first one over Riverside. We normally get together face to face, but we decided, better for both of our schedules. Let's just get her done and talk about the Super Bowl. So, Giovanni, before we start, okay, I want to talk about this. We've done this is our third Super Bowl preview.
Yeah.
Okay. And the Chiefs have been in every single one. Every single one. It's crazy. It's crazy. Talk to me about that. Like that's just wild.
I mean, for our purposes, it kind of saves a little bit of time because we're always familiar with the Chiefs. They're always on the top. Like you don't necessarily have to go out of your way to look them up. So kind of saves half the matchup for our previews. But then you get the Eagles part of it too. It's like I'm doing half the work for this one.
Yeah, I know. I know. Like, I mean, I think we could talk about the Chiefs from heart by now. Like,
Yeah.
we just know. We just know. Like, you got Mahomes, you got Kelsey, all this, the best defense in the league.
Spagnolo, yeah.
Exactly, exactly. It's crazy. And our first Super Bowl preview, it was Chiefs Eagles. Now we got Chiefs Eagles again. So I'm super excited about that. Like, talk to me a little bit about. Let's start with the Chiefs here. Just like their route through the AFC. Talk to me about it. Did you think that the Chiefs were gonna make the Super Bowl? Like, talk to me about their route.
So I have gained a lot of respect for the Chiefs. I mean, obviously, I'm like the average man. I don't like them. However, this road through the playoffs gained a lot of respect for me, as if they were looking for it, but still because I kind of realized what the Chiefs are and why they are so difficult to defeat. It's because the Buffalo game is, I think, a great example of it, where I don't think, like, whatever the fourth down call, did he cross the line? I thought it was just a poor game by the Bills. They did not come ready. They did not play the flawless football that the Chiefs demand in order for you to beat them. So I didn't think it was any kind of voodoo magic for that matchup. You could say there was a little bit more in their game against the Texans, maybe, but for those games to be boiled down to a single call, I think it's pretty much established that you can't leave it to that kind of situation. It's where you have to beat them comfortably, to even beat them closely. So for the way they played this season, it's a lot of Mahomes, but it's also like less on Mahomes. It's kind of a similar
Mhm.
thing I'll mention for the Eagles, where it's like it's a football team. They have the best quarterback at least of recent history, just to put it quickly, but it's a team around him. It's the coaches. It's the general manager putting good players on the field. Like I'm getting this sense of the whole operation and getting a lot of respect for it because if you want to be a 15-2 one seed repeat 3P team, that's what's required. And they didn't necessarily cheat their way to it. They lucked their way to a lot of it, but I'm starting to get to take my medicine and understand it's like, okay, they play to that. They're good because they know that and play to it. So I gained a lot of respect for the Chiefs. I still don't like them in terms of rooting for them. Maybe they're not as exciting, they're not as entertaining, but it's like this team is really good. Like
Yeah.
I just got to give it up.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, I think you put it perfectly here. Like, especially with this AFC playoffs, I was like, okay, they got home field advantage. They got what they wanted, right? And then I sit down and I'm watching them play the Texans, and I'm like, man, this D line could really give them some trouble. And they kind of did. Like, they did their job. They did okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, it was clear that on the other side of the ball, the Texans didn't have it. Stroud's O line just really just did not show up, and he was pressured the whole game. I don't blame Stroud that much for that loss.
I
I
don't
think it
either.
was more just the Chiefs D line just being all over him. At the end of the day, like, who are you going to trust at the end of the day, Patrick Mahomes or CJ Stroud? And at the end of the day, that's what the question was. And then you're looking at it, and I think it was clear that Buffalo was probably the favorites in that AFC Championship game. And I was very high on Buffalo going into the season because of the fact that they went away from their receiving game. They got rid of Stephon Diggs. They got rid of all that and then just built through the line. And then James Cook looks unbelievable because he actually has a good O line to play with, right?
Right.
So Buffalo, unbelievable season. They were able to beat Baltimore, who I thought Baltimore was actually better than Buffalo, which was crazy to me. So that was a big time win. And it was because Josh Allen didn't turn the ball over. And now you're sitting here and Buffalo has 0 turnovers and the Chiefs have 1 turnover and the Chiefs still win the game. That's the crazy part to me. Like
Yeah.
the Chiefs just managed to make play after play, and Patrick Mahomes, like at the end of the day, just made the play. Like Buffalo takes the lead in the fourth quarter, all right? And you're sitting there. And in the back of my head, like the Chiefs haven't even gotten the ball back yet. But if I'm Sean McDermott and in the back of my head, I'm like, man, we're up 1 right now, but the Chiefs are probably going to go right down and score, and we're going to be down 7. So I have to plan this next drive. And then like the Chiefs go right down, score, and they're up 7. And like Josh Allen has the ball, he has a shot, and they don't get it.
Yeah.
It's really tough. It's really tough. Go ahead.
Yeah, and for Buffalo, like I think the main theme, and I think this applies to even a lot of teams this season. I think we're starting to see that kind of trend in the NFL where the goal is not to put everything on the quarterback. You can't, as good as they are, as good as Josh Allen, Mahomes, Hurts, Lamar, even Justin Herbert in Los Angeles, like they're good and they're the best when they don't have as many opportunities to make a mistake. You get them just when it's enough. And when it came to Buffalo, that's how they played this season. That's how they were able to get to the AFC Championship. Give it to Cook, and make him make the necessary plays, not all the freak show stuff that would force turnovers. But then you get to the Chiefs game and you just retract back to all the things you were before. You made Josh Allen throw it too much, and he had to try to be the hero. His first 2 passes were almost interceptions, and you could tell they were playing tight because it was kind of a thing where you have a plan until you get punched in the mouth, but they didn't even get punched in the mouth. They were so scared of that punch that they went back to their old habits. Too much on Josh Allen, and especially in those short yardage situations where, okay, we'll just give it to the polar bear, let him sneak it like it's the 60s. And it doesn't work. And it doesn't work, and you continue to do it. And even with a play like that, the play call, if you want to get that 1 yard, you're drawing imaginary lines of scrimmage. If you're playing the Chiefs, the benefit of the doubt's going to go to them. So why are you calling a play that relies on that kind of judgment? So I thought Buffalo kind of played to their older side instead of the new and improved side.
I agree with that point 100%. The thing that kind of emphasizes your point to me with Sean McDermott and a play calling in this game is like they did 3 QB sneaks to the left and 1 QB sneak to the right. The 1 QB sneak to the right got them the first down. The 3 to the left didn't. So why are you continuing to go to the left? I know you'd rather go to the left, but Tony Romo said it on the broadcast. He was like, the Chiefs are ready for them to go to the left. So what are you doing? Like you went right one time and it worked for you. So I don't understand why they kept going to the left. And in that case scenario, if you're a coach in any sport, you have to make adjustments. If you see right away, whoa, this play didn't work. And they were perfect on it, I think, before this game, either perfect or maybe missed one. I don't know, but at 90% at least. And you're looking at it, and it's like, okay, if a 90% play didn't work the first time, then I have to switch it. Let's try it to the right. And if the right one doesn't work, then you don't run that play.
Right.
It's just that at the end of the day. And I think at the end of the day, we saw why the Chiefs have dominated. It's partly because of Patrick Mahomes, but it's partly because of Andy Reid as well. Him as a coach is just sensational. And Spags as a coach, as a defensive coordinator, it's insane. So to me, the Chiefs were still the team. I picked the Chiefs preseason to make the Super Bowl. Sadly, it was against the Lions, but I picked them to make the Super Bowl. And I'm not surprised that they're back in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and you get the sense, and I relate it back to kind of our world in the Horizon League when I knew from last season the way Purdue Fort Wayne played at Oakland, and I know we're getting really niche here for the NFL audience, but essentially the idea is that they have a lot of returning players, which is an enormous advantage for college basketball. That's how Oakland got their run the previous years because they had that consistency. You bring that to the NFL level, and it's still the same thing. You have the head coach, defensive coordinator, quarterback, Hall of Fame
Yep.
tight end. That entire core has that continuity, familiarity with each other. It's something that's lost in sports where you're constantly doing transactions and switching, and everyone has to learn each other's names. You have that same core for like, what's it been like? Maybe like 7 years at least, however their streak of AFC championships is. You have that experience that is invaluable in a sport, in all professional sports nowadays, that changes so often. Consistency beats that.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. Yeah, I remember when people were like, they traded Tyreek Hill to the Dolphins. They might not make the Super Bowl for a while.
Right. And why
Yeah,
would you think they would? Like, given
exactly.
how Tyreek Hill was, like at the time, like why would they continue to make the Super
At
Bowl?
the time, it's like, why would they? But now, if you look at it, Stephon Diggs goes away from Buffalo, and they're better. Justin Herbert loses all of his receivers. Guess what? They were way better this year. Like that's how you build a team. You build it through your O line, and that's how anybody should be looking at it. Like if you're the Commanders right now, you just found your quarterback. Go get an O line. Like maybe get rid of McLaurin. Like you don't need
At some
McLaurin.
point,
Go get your O line. You have Eckler for now, who's a great receiving back. Maybe try to go find another receiving back. You got Brian Robinson as your main back. That's fine. If you build through the line, Brian Robinson might become a monster running back, like one of the best in the league. He might have a DeMarco Murray season, and then you could be awesome. Like that's kind of how like you should build your team. And
yeah, I think that's starting
like
to become more common knowledge now. I think a lot of teams are modeling after that, even though it
yeah,
takes
for
longer to
sure.
do.
And a perfect example of that is the Eagles. Like they had their O line. We can switch right into thoughts on the Eagles here, but like they had their O line already built. And last year it was weird. The chemistry was off. Something was off going into the Eagles. And guess what they did? They went out and got the best running back possible and said, okay, I think it was the running back problem. We only had an average running back. We need to have a superstar running back with this O line that's awesome. And yes, you lose Jason Kelsey, but guess what? Landon Dickerson is one of the best O linemen I've ever seen. He's a monster. He's playing everywhere and doing everything. It's really, really impressive. But I mean, the Eagles like got Saquon and they're running through people and they look awesome. So talk to me about your thoughts on the Eagles and their run through the NFC.
Yeah, and when it comes to building the way the Eagles have done it, and I've started to realize, like, everyone was talking about the value of the running back. And we saw a season where a bunch of running backs did really well going to different places. So it's like, are running backs worth more? Well, it depends on where they go.
Yeah.
Where you get Derrick Henry going to the Ravens and you get Saquon going to the Eagles, it's a cherry on top kind of move. It's one where you get the most value out of a running back when the team around him is good, when the O line is good. It's dependent on other positions. So you had the Eagles kind of, a perfect nest for, Eagles reference, nest to put Saquon in. And
Yeah.
it's the perfect setting for him where that also plays into taking the pressure off of Jalen Hurts, especially in the run game. That opens up so many things when you have a team that can already function. The running back is the last piece you add to a team like that. So just based on the roster alone, so that's the offensive side. You get to the defensive side, and when we're talking about the Eagles' return to the Super Bowl, since they lost that first one, they've just been dumping everything roster wise onto the defense, especially the defensive line. It's like all Georgia Bulldogs, but especially Jalen Carter and what's the other guy's name?
Jordan Davis.
Jordan Davis. Yeah,
Yep.
you get
Yep.
you get two like hulking menaces from Georgia. So back to the continuity thing, they have at least a little familiarity with each other. It's just the roster is built perfectly. From the trenches, and you go out, and even when you go out, you still have a fantastic roster at all levels. So there was no doubt that they would at least get to the NFC Championship game. Obviously, not predicting the injuries that happened to the Lions and stuff. That throws a wrench into things, and no one expected the Commanders to it. So there's a little variance to it, but at the end of it, it's that perfect roster that ends up prevailing. The cream rose to the top. I'm not surprised that the Eagles are at this point. Maybe there's a little bit of surprise given how like weird some of the games through the season have been. Close games against crap teams, but it's still like they're at least like to the media. their value on just the win on its own, I think that's better long term instead of worrying about how you win. And it's like they have the roster to beat anybody. So as long as they meet that standard of winning, that's all that matters. Because the next game, guess what? We might change the game plan, but we got superstars there anyway. So
Yep.
yeah, all in all, like it's too good of a roster to not make the Super Bowl at this point. It would be a big loss. It would be a big hit to them as a franchise if they didn't get to this point, or at least lost in a conference championship. They had to get here.
Yes. No, I 100% agree. Like, if you're looking at this Eagles team, especially like last year when I talked about the Eagles losing to the Bucks, I was so disappointed in the coaching job because of how much talent is on the field. And then, like, literally, the Eagles front office completely understood that, talked to Sirianni, and they're like, okay, you have one more year. You got to figure this out. And what he did is fire his coordinators and brought in new ones. Kellen Moore as an offensive coordinator who's done an unbelievable job building through the run and building through Saquon and building through that O-line. And then you got Fangio on the other side of the defensive coordinator. And it's been great. It's been really, really great. And I talked a lot about Georgia's D-line last year with the Eagles and that transition. And the fact of the matter is that at Georgia, they're like subbing all the time. They don't have to play the as long. And that seemed to really drain on guys like Jalen Carter and guys like Jordan Davis as the season wore on last year. And this year, they're subbing them a lot more. They got more depth at those positions, and they're able to make them more valuable here. Jalen Carter's been a monster now that they're doing that. Jordan Davis has been an absolute monster now that they're doing that. And they just got so much all around the field that's just really impressive. Cooper DeJean is awesome. I think everybody knew in draft prospects that he would be amazing. And like you're looking at all these defensive talents that they have, and it's just ridiculous. I mean, Nakobe Dean's been out for so long, but Dean's a monster. He's an absolute monster. I love the Eagles defense. I think like they finally found a guy in Fangio that can really put them in the right positions and was he's just an awesome coach. He's a great coordinator. He struggled when he had the head coaching job with the Broncos, but hey, overall, like he's a great coach. So I think overall, Eagles wise, they're finally in a good position and they're finally at a spot where it's like, okay, you do this or not. And to me, like the line right now is -1.5 Chiefs, but the Eagles should be favored. Like I don't think I think it's just the Mahomes tax that's a little bit too much. And like if I was making the line, it should be Eagles -3, because they're the more talented team. They have every spot pretty much covered. And this is the exact same conversation we had that first year in the Super Bowl pod, where it's like the Eagles are a better team. And that's what I think it is in this situation. Do you agree with me here?
Yeah, I mean, like, what else could the Eagles possibly do to give themselves a chance to win the Super Bowl? Like, there's not a roster spot that could really reasonably get any better. And I failed to mention the coordinators, like you were just mentioning. Kellen Moore and Fangio, those are two of like basically the best coordinators you can find, especially like to just like bring them to the same spot. It's like almost like a no-brainer for those guys to get in on those spots. So it's even up to the coordinator level. It's like, where else could you possibly improve, within the real world, within reason? So it's almost like if you can't beat the Chiefs this year, nobody can. And if that's the case, like how can you even feel bad for the Eagles? It's like, listen, I gave him my best shot. Like, what else am I supposed to do? So like it's kind of, it feels like it's out of their control almost, where just given that being the case. But when it comes to the Chiefs being favored in this one, I think it goes back to that consistency thing.
Yeah.
As talented as that team is, they haven't been to 7 conference championships in a row. They haven't been to 3 Super Bowls in a row, and whatever, like the 4 out of the last 6 or whatever those numbers are for their trips to the Super Bowl. It's like that you can't teach that. It's impossible to teach. And they have so many of those players who have been through all of those deep trips to the playoffs that when you add new players like Hollywood Brown or DeAndre Hopkins or even some of the young guys, it's like you have so many people familiar with it to where it just infects the rest of the team. Then everybody has at least enough Super Bowl experience to at least know what the pressure feels like. And I'll relate it back to my old world of swimming. I was a swimmer back in high school, and it's like the reason you practice, the reason you go at race speed is yes, to get stronger, but it's to know what it's like for your heart and lungs to be on
True.
fire. You can't
Yep.
simulate that if you're not there in a high pressure meet where you need every split second. You need to know what it feels like. The
Yep.
Chiefs know what it feels like. It's normal to them. They're numb to it. They could care less that it's the Super Bowl because it's so normal to them. That that's invaluable. That's a mysterious level of power that might show up or it may not. You
Yeah.
can't quantify it.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be crazy. I'm really, really excited. But I think like with talking to the Eagles, the best thing to transition to is probably the only question with the Eagles is Jalen Hurts this year. And we talked about it before the show where we were putting it, and it's like Jalen Hurts was an MVP candidate. Like everybody loved Jalen Hurts in the last Super Bowl. He's awesome. And this year there's just been a lot of inconsistency. It hasn't been the Jalen Hurts like we've expected here. So talk to me a little bit about what you've seen from Hurts and like how confident you are with him going in this game.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, this is not his MVP season, and given the way the team's going, I got a hard time thinking that he is going to reach that MVP level again. But I think it's because at that time, I mean, still as good as that Eagles roster was, it required more of Jalen Hurts. You didn't have, the threat of a Saquon Barkley in the backfield. You had Miles Sanders. You had Kenneth Gainwell. They threats for sure given the old line, but a lot was put on Hurts to make up for it, to make the deep throws, to make the long runs. And the tush push touchdowns were a lot more surprising back then. And
Yeah.
now we come to expect that it's like they're automatic. It's not so much like, oh, look at how many touchdowns he has. We all know the context of it. But I think this season, especially with the Saquon addition, you don't need as much from Hurts, so you're not going to see as much of it. And
Yeah.
yeah, is it a little bit inconsistent? Maybe, yeah. And especially when you compare it to Mahomes, yeah, that's going to be advantage Chiefs. But I think it's just they don't need him to do as much, so it doesn't look as shiny as that MVP season. But we're seeing in the NFL to where like that's kind of the trend. Take the load off your quarterback and let them be more specialized, like what the Lions do with Jared Goff. Make him be good enough
Yep.
to win, and,
Yeah.
and enough opportunities, I should say.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a perfect way to put it. Like, it's ball control football, right? Running through that run game and running through that O line. And I think Jalen Hurts is doing a great job of it. I think a Commanders game was a perfect example. Like, when he had the deep balls down the field, he was throwing good balls. Like, overall, I thought he played a great game against Commanders, was running for touchdowns. I think he had 2 rushing touchdowns and was making plays all over the place. And overall, I think that's all they need out of Jalen Hurts. I know there's been some inconsistency, but like when you're looking at him, he was never the guy that was just going to dot you up. He was never that guy. And now people have gotten accustomed to his running style and he's not as great of a quarterback. That's fine. If as long as you're a top 15 guy and you protect the ball, you'll be all right. And in this game, if he protects the ball and they play their ball control football, they have a great chance to win this game. Like they have to control the time of possession here. That's probably my main key for the Eagles to win this game. Like they have to control time of possession. And with Jalen Hurts, it's like no turnovers, time of possession, no turnovers. If you can make those two things happen, then it's going to be on your defense. And to be honest, like you can rely on that defense. They're pretty dang good. What are your keys for the Eagles to win this game?
The time of possession point is huge, like you were mentioning, and I think it's because when it comes to the Eagles, it's I mean, anytime you play the Chiefs, it's a high wire act. You have so little margin for error. And what kind of concerns me is if the Eagles don't get the first lead, if they have to play from behind, that's not quite how the team is built. I mean, they can, with Hurts throwing the deep ball and AJ Brown, they got great receivers to be able to do it. But like the team is better built for that slow grind, control the clock kind of game. You can't come back in that kind of situation. And when you make Hurts throw it precisely, consistently, like 40 attempts like that, that's where you get in trouble. That's where you get the Eagles out of their groove. So it's going to be really important. So I guess for that key, it's time of possession and scoring on the first possession. Do
First
not play
possession.
from behind,
Yeah.
especially against that Chiefs defense. Don't force Hurts or any quarterback when you play the Chiefs, don't force them to match Mahomes. You
Yeah.
can't do it. You have to play through the rest of your team.
Yeah. No, I like what you're saying about like the the run. Like you can't get behind. Like if it's a 2nd and 12 or like a 3rd and 12, like you can't have those plays. And that's going to be the battle on the line of scrimmage. That O line versus the Chiefs D line. I think that's what I'm most excited to see. I'm also excited to see the other side of the ball because I think they're both like formidable. Like I think both sides, it's formidable. Like how are the Chiefs offensive line going to stop Chris Jones when he's moving all over the place in the defensive line? Same could be said with Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter on the other side of the ball. Like Joe Tooney's the only guy I trust on any of them, like so it's going to be interesting there. And when you're looking at it here, like I'm really excited to see that part of it. And I think with the Eagles, like they got to control time of possession. And I like what you're saying, like get ahead because yes, you're still putting the ball in Patrick Mahomes' hands, but you have to at some points.
Yeah, and you gotta know that at some point during the game, like if it's close, like the Eagles, like they have to have like at least a touchdown lead because if you're playing from behind, like I can just picture the scenario now, similar to their game against Buffalo, where it's like maybe like final possession or like the last time they'll get the ball, and the Eagles are behind. It's 3rd and long. Here comes a Spags blitz. Here comes
Yep.
like the just like insane in the membrane kind of scheming from Spagnuolo because he's been there, because he has an endless bag
Just
of
like the
tricks.
blitz with Josh Allen on the 4th and 5.
Exactly. So I mean, you got to avoid that kind of situation. But man, is that going to be hard against that defense? So it's just that's what scares me. It's that experience of the Chiefs. Like it's a real advantage from Mahomes and then to the coaching staff and then to the players. It's not just Mahomes.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree completely. What are your keys for the Chiefs? I think my only key Chiefs wise is like have Mahomes on the field as much as possible and you'll be all right. That's I think my only key there.
Yeah, so it's the Chiefs are just going to have to. I mean, they can really play any way you want because and that's their advantage because especially on their offensive side, like are they like if they kind of get the leverage, like let's use an arm wrestling metaphor. If the Chiefs are the one to get the leverage, they get the wrist bent over, then they can play the run game and drain the clock in that way. But if they're behind, then you have Mahomes who can zip it at any window. You're going to have Kelsey open it a lot of times. And, I got to imagine either a D hop over someone's head in the end zone or a Xavier Worthy big play. It's like they can keep afloat through any situation and they have just enough explosiveness to be able to kind of, shortcut it if they need to. But the Chiefs can play any way that you want. So to put a key to them, it's like, here's everything. Here's the whole ring of keys. Pick one. That's really how it feels like with the Chiefs. But if they're behind, they can do it. If they're ahead, they can do it. It's gonna be so hard for the Eagles, man.
I know it always is. It's crazy, like going against that team and trying to figure out how to beat them. So predictions for the game. What do you got?
I think Chiefs are gonna do it, man. There's
You
too
finally
many.
went over to my side, right?
Yeah, I mean, and like here's my thing. I hate winners. Naturally, I hate because I'll give the abridged version of my whole rant here. But when it comes to teams like the Chiefs and previously the Patriots, you see the game and you already know how it ends.
Yeah.
That takes away the main value of sports is that you don't know how it's going to end, so it's not as fun. But I'm thinking of all the different scenarios. You go head coach to head coach. Is it going to be Sirianni or Andy Reid? It's like it's probably going to be Andy Reid. So it's just I got to go with the Chiefs. I don't. It's not going to be a blowout. I don't think they have the offense to overcome the Eagles' defense to make it a blowout. But I mean, low 20s is probably where I'll put it. Probably maybe like a 24-21 Chiefs victory, 3-peat. Pat Riley gets his payday.
Yeah. For me, I got Chiefs again and 31. I was gonna pick the Chiefs against anybody but the Lions. I think the Lions are the perfect matchup for the Chiefs. I really do.
You were supposed to kill him, man.
I know. Like that was my thoughts. I was like, okay, if the Lions play the Chiefs, they're winning the Super Bowl. If they play the Ravens or the Bills, there's a conversation. I don't know if we match up as well with them, and that's how I was predicting. But like overall, I was like, okay, if the Lions aren't in the Super Bowl, the Chiefs are beating anybody else. And this for me includes the Eagles, even though I think the Eagles are a better team here. And it's just because of the Mahomes factor. Like, I feel like Mahomes is going to have the last possession and they're going to lead a game winning drive. And I think they'll win 34-31. That's my prediction there. And, like, it's crazy because this would be a three-peat. And let's say this happens. Okay. Like, what's Mahomes' legacy here? Like, is he, I feel like it's a conversation with Brady. You have to have the conversation now. Talk to me about it.
Yeah, I mean, he's absolutely in the conversation. To me, I think he would already be over Brady, but that projects the rest of Mahomes' career. Yeah,
Fair. Okay.
because he's not even 30. He's not even 30 years old yet, and he's
Yeah.
at this point. It's like when you bring the career out to like 35 years old, is he going to have enough accolades to go against Brady? Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
You have this many Super Bowls already. It's just like even if he wins maybe like one more, maybe two by the time he's it's even projected farther to 40.
Yeah.
Then yeah, that's probably going to be a better career than Brady. So it's not currently at this day, but but if he three-peats, it will be in the future that Mahomes is the best.
Yeah. No, for me, I think Mahomes legacy wise, if he gets the three-peat, then it's a conversation. You can have the argument. I'm fine with people having the argument in that case. I still put Brady there. I was never the biggest Brady guy. I was always against those Patriots. I don't know. I had a lot of annoying New England Patriots friends. So I was just like, yeah, no. And in this Mahomes run, this is the first time I've actually been a fan of the winning team. That's the interesting part where
And that's hard to do. It's hard to win people over.
Yeah, it's hard to do because like the Golden State Warriors, I hated the Golden State Warriors. The San Antonio Spurs, I hated the San Antonio Spurs. Like all of these Alabama, I hated Alabama football. And now looking back, I'm like reading Nick Saban's book. I'm reading all these books about these like prominent like dominant dynasties, and it's like this is what we all aspire to do. This is all what we want our team to do. Like if this was the Lions, we would be loving this. Like it would be great. So it just puts like so much respect like in here. And the first time I saw Mahomes play, I was like, this is the kind of play style I love. And then he morphed that play style, and now he's doing it like protecting the ball and making every single correct decision. And I just flat out love watching him play. And that's part of the reason I've always been on him. But like overall, like I think with Mahomes' legacy, it's an argument. I don't think he's there. I don't think I think you have warrant to say yes, but I don't think so. And I feel like he'd have to win 5 or 6 for me to maybe put him ahead.
Yeah, and it's something like I guess just the way to be the best quarterback is to be right, not cool. Like that's the thing. I mean, early in his career, he had Hill. That stuff was awesome. The 5,000 passing yards, and the stats like that. That's fun to watch, but that's not reliable enough to win over an entire generation. That's kind of what it ends up being. And when you talk about like I'm also kind of getting into the audiobooks of championship coaches, like. Wow. I mean, that's hard to do. I think that's what gets lost in dynasty conversations, or I should say the current winning team of whatever era. What gets lost is how difficult it is to do that. And only afterwards, only when you look back, can you kind of give that appreciation? Because for now, it's like, they're beating my team now. This sucks. This isn't fun because I want to win. But you look back at the history of it, that's where you start to gain the appreciation. So I'll like the Chiefs later, but
that's fair.
I'll like them later.
That's fair. That's fair. Well, Giovanni, to close, I want to get your thoughts on the Lions. Really, really depressing loss to the Washington Commanders. I had tickets set for the NFC Championship. I was ready to go. And yeah, really, really tough. So talk to me about both of our coordinators leaving. Talk to me about your thoughts for next year, how you're feeling.
I feel better after seeing the NFC Championship game because at the current state the Lions were at, given the injuries, and even if Amik Robertson didn't go down immediately, I don't think we were going to beat the Eagles. I don't think we were going to. I mean, obviously, we couldn't stop the Commanders' rushing attack.
Yeah.
We had no chance against the Eagles. So I did feel a little bit better in that. But it's, if we were healthy, it's a different conversation. I think we would beat them healthy, but that's not the world we live in. So it's like, okay, it wasn't meant to be. We got the regular season accolades, or early, brushing off the regular season curses. of the Lions. Now maybe let's take a little bit out of the regular season and put it into the playoffs.
Yeah.
We don't need to be 15-2 to get to the Super Bowl, And I'm just saying it like it's a choice, but I think we can still take the step back that's going to end up happening when you lose two coordinators, as well as every other coach underneath them. Like, I didn't know that happens when teams are good. Like, we're losing the wide receiver coach. Like, I didn't even know that was possible. But I don't know that was part. I didn't know that was part of the divorce. But yeah, they're taking the kids with them. But when we inevitably take that step back from fifth, I mean, that's the thing. Everyone's scared of taking a step back. We're at 15 wins. We could drop down to 11 and stay afloat. I think we'll be not as good in the regular season, but I think we'll be fine because we have that kind of consistency with the head coach, quarterback, and then you got Sewell and St. Brown. Like, you have those core pieces. Hutchinson's included in that too. One, also, Hutchinson's coming back, and I got to believe that we're going to reload some of the depth that we lost. We can't go into the season the same way we did this year because we lost everybody. We need to reload. Yeah. But I think we'll still be in contention for the division. I don't know how quickly the Bears are going to be able to turn it around. I don't think the ceiling's super high for the Packers, and the Vikings are a bit of a wild card with McCarthy coming back. I think we're still in the running to win the division. Then you get a home playoff game, and then I think we could kind of get back to our new standard. It might be a little dicier, but I think I'm still confident that we're going to be able to do it.
So you think it will be worse?
I do, yeah. I mean, at least from the regular season, it's like I'm understanding the importance of a coaching staff. Seeing the Chiefs, what good coordinators can be, and when it comes to the Eagles, I'm not sure how good Kelvin Shepard is going to be as the new DC. I'm not sure how I forgot his name, but the guy coming as our OC from the Broncos, like I don't know how they're going to do in their first time at this role with us. So yeah, I think it's going to be a step back, but step back from 15 is not bad. We're not going to nosedive to 4 wins. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Like looking at it this wise, and like I was talking about it with a lot of friends when Ben Johnson left, and I was just like, to be honest with you, I'm not really worried about our offense, like at all. And the reason is because Sean Payton said when he was working at Fox, when talking about Dan Campbell, he was like, yeah, Dan Campbell is like the Bill Belichick of the offensive side of the football. And people don't really understand that. Like, who brought Ben Johnson in? Dan Campbell, And like, so people saying that the Lions offense isn't going to be the same and all this like blobbly blue, that's just not right, because
it's nonsense.
It's nonsense because Dan Campbell is the one that actually is doing it. Like Sean Payton said it himself, like he is that guy kind of guru on the offensive side of the ball. So to be honest with you, like offensive wise, I'm not concerned at all. We have a great O-line. We have Jahmyr Gibbs. Jared Goff was fine. Like everybody's saying that Jared Goff like is the reason why we lost that game. Screw you, man. Jared Goff was fine. Okay, like
he was one of the reasons.
Yeah, they scored 45 points. We couldn't stop him at all. Okay, Jared Goff is at least trying to make plays down the field, and he's trying to get us back in the game. Yes, he made a couple of errors. The only person that's not going to make errors in those situations are Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. There's two. And if you say Lamar Jackson, you're wrong because he fumbles every time. All right. Okay. Sorry, I'm getting a little heated here.
Yeah, but
when we're looking at this though, it's like, okay, Ben Johnson, he could do a good job in Chicago, blah, blah, blah. Okay. They don't have an O-line right now, so I'm not really concerned with them. And if you're looking at Detroit, we have all the foundations offensively. Okay. Defensively, I was concerned with Aaron Glenn 2 years ago. Okay. He had an unbelievable defensive coordinator year with this crew. He did a fantastic job, but we also brought in a lot more help talent-wise defensively. So if we're bringing in another guy defensively and also with who we draft and who we get, we still have Brad Holmes. I feel like they're going to build the defense, and I feel like we might not be the 1 seed, but that doesn't matter when the playoffs come around.
Clearly the 1 seed isn't a guarantee.
Exactly. And the reason why we got the 1 seed this year was because we played, I believe the number was 14 games out of the 18 games indoors. Nobody gets that. Nobody gets that. That's why I was betting Lions 1 seed and all this stuff, because I knew that the Lions were going to be awesome. And that's because we're playing indoors and we have the best offensive football. That
And we played the
helps,
AFC South. That helps
right?
too.
Yeah, exactly. Like we had the best schedule we possibly could. Now with this schedule coming up, it's going to be a lot harder. But the fact of the matter is that we're good enough to be a playoff team, and if you put us in the playoffs, we can beat anybody. And that's why I'm very confident, and I feel like that we're at least going to be an NFC Championship team because of like what we have and the crew that we still have that's there. Like the Lions are going to go make a move this. Like we were talking before the pod, maybe it's Myles Garrett. I mean, like we don't know, you know? So overall, as a Lions fan, like I feel great. The Commanders loss, it stung. It sucked. But the fact of the matter is I think you're right. We lose to the Eagles. You know, the Eagles are a really, really good team. So we might as well have lost to the Commanders and not gotten there. That's fine. That makes us hungrier for next year. So overall, I feel great. I had to get that spiel out, but go ahead.
No, you're right. And going to what you were talking about for Ben Johnson, like I'm not gonna lean as heavy into the way you were doing it with like, oh, it was all Dan Campbell. Like,
yeah,
Ben Johnson was still
Johnson's
extremely
great.
good.
I'm not trying to take away anything there. He's great. He's awesome. Yeah,
he is. But and I liked what he said when he was leaving. It's like this offense is set up for anyone to be able to operate it well.
Yeah,
and it's the roster itself is good enough to be there. It's the offense is still going to be a strength given the roster. And honestly, I like the internal hire of Calvin Shepard to the DC because of like whatever Aaron Glenn did is got to rub off a little bit on Calvin Shepard because whatever it was that kept that defense afloat from Aaron Glenn, I got to imagine that kind of continues because that's something I wouldn't want to lose because you add someone new in, then your range of possibilities is everywhere. It could nosedive again, but I like this one kind of keeps it a little bit more consistent. But yeah, I'm still confident the coaching staff is, I do love Dan Campbell. They're not going to give him the credit because of the kneecap thing. No, you can't get it out of your head. That's the importance of a first impression, and no one's going to give him the schematic credit for that. But I still think like the raw belief, the indomitable human spirit, that's Campbell's specialty.
And you said
that takes you far.
You said our new OC's from the Broncos.
I think he was previously the Broncos pass game coordinator, but he was with the Lions previously in 2022.
Sean Payton. Like we're getting guys that know what they're doing. And Sean Payton is one of the best offensive minds we've seen. Like he literally loved Bo Nix. I didn't see it with Bo Nix. I thought he was trash. And literally they made the playoffs. So like Sean Payton is a guru when it comes to offensive side of football. And if he's saying that about our head coach, I feel great.
And I trust the Lions organization to hire great people, and they draft great people, they acquire great people. I think they got a good sense of that. So if that's who they select, I'm comfortable with the decision, at least at this moment. I want to give myself the opportunity to have my judgments later, but at the time I trust them to make that decision given the resume.
That's fair. That's fair. Well, Giovanni, this is always a lot of fun. So I really appreciate you coming on, man.
I always love coming on, man.
Yeah, third Super Bowl preview, man. Like time flies. Time really flies. I think we did that first pod and we weren't even using mics at that point, and now we're here.
Yeah, man. I mean, like it's weird. I'm an old man now. I graduated from Oakland. You're closer to that. You're on your way to there, so it's cool to kind of see all the time go by. I really do love coming on your show, dude. Like I don't get to talk about football as much on my show. I cover Oakland sports, specifically basketball. So like this is a cool way to kind of get the football demons out of me. But I always love coming on your show. I appreciate your invites.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. Well, that's going to wrap up the show for today. Thank you guys so much for watching, listening, wherever you're at. And I will see you guys next time. Peace. Yo, yo, yo. Welcome back into another episode of Jake's Takes. I am your host, Jake Masucci, and today I am super excited for another edition of the show. Today I got on my guy, Giovanni Moceri. Super excited for this one. I mean, another great pod. This is our third Super Bowl preview and another crazy NFL season. Didn't do as much with NFL as I normally have liked, because I took that break, but I'm excited to get going with the Super Bowl preview. Giovanni and I cover pretty much the whole thing, like Eagles, Chiefs, like the whole everything you need to know about the Super Bowl we cover in this episode. So I'm super excited for this one. And without further ado, I'm going to cue the music.